Ever feel like you're fighting battles no one sees, like your life has been one long test and you're not even sure what you're being tested for? You wake up tired, carry a weight you can't explain, and go to sleep with questions that never seem to have answers. People think you're strong because you never show the storm. But deep down, you're wondering why this much pain, why this constant pressure. Let me tell you something most won't say out loud. This isn't random. This isn't just life being hard. And no, it's not bad luck. What you're carrying, what you've been walking through, it's the mark of someone chosen by God, not in a way that the world celebrates, but in a way that heaven recognizes. Because being chosen doesn't come with comfort. It comes with fire, real fire, fire that breaks you, molds you, humbles you, and then calls you to stand back up again. Fire that takes away the noise of the world so you can finally hear the whisper of God. People look at you and see the surface, but God looks at you and sees someone he can trust with pain, with silence, with crushing, because he's building something eternal inside you. You weren't picked to be popular. You were picked to be powerful, and real power doesn't come through ease. It comes through endurance. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. This season you're in, it's not the end. It's the beginning of something holy. Don't mistake the fire for abandonment. The fire is proof that you were never ordinary. You were always set apart and chosen ones. They don't run from the fire. They rise from it. The calling comes with fire. Being chosen sounds beautiful until you live it. People love the idea of being called by God. It sounds powerful, even glamorous. But the truth, it's not about titles, it's not about recognition, and it's definitely not about status. Being chosen is about surrender, full surrender. Not the kind that happens in church during a song, but the kind that happens in the dark when no one is watching, when your hands are trembling, and you say, God, I don't understand, but I trust you anyway. God doesn't just pick the strongest. In fact, he rarely does. He doesn't need the already qualified. He chooses the surrendered, the ones willing to be emptied so he can fill them, the ones willing to lay down their plans, their timing, their pride, and their comfort, the ones who say yes even when their voice shakes, the ones who walk into battles they didn't ask for, simply because obedience means more to them than applause. And here's the hardest part. The greater the calling, the greater the crushing. That's a reality most won't tell you, but it's real. The higher the purpose, the deeper the breaking, because God isn't building something weak in you. He's building something that will last, something that will carry weight. And for that, he has to strip you down, not to destroy you, but to rebuild you on a foundation that can't be shaken. People will see your strength but never understand your scars. They'll admire your peace without knowing the storms you had to survive to find it. But that's how God works. He hides his most powerful warriors in the wilderness. He tests them in silence. He crushes them in private before he reveals them in public. Because if you can't survive the fire, you can't carry the flame. And the fire, it's not just heat. It's not just trials. It's loss. It's disappointment. It's heartbreak. It's waiting. It's being misunderstood. It's having to keep showing up while feeling empty. It's having to encourage others when your own soul is tired. It's being stripped of every identity you clung to, so that the only thing left is who God says you are. But there's purpose in the pressure. God never wastes pain. He uses it to refine, to purify, to test what's real and remove what's not. You think you're breaking, but you're being rebuilt. You think you're stuck, but you're being shaped. You think you're losing, but God is positioning you for something bigger than you can imagine. This kind of calling can't be faked. It's not built on charisma. It's built on character. And character is only forged in fire. If you're walking through that fire right now, don't run from it. Let it do its work. Let it break what needs to break. Let it reveal what needs to be seen. Because on the other side of this crushing is a version of you that looks more like Christ and less like the world. The world may never understand the depth of your journey, but heaven does. And God, He sits not looking for flashy. He sits looking for faithful, the kind of faithful that sits willing to stay in the fire until He says, now you sits ready. And when that moment comes, all that pain, all that pressing, all that waiting, it won't feel wasted. It will feel holy because it is. The test of silence. There is a kind of pain that doesn't come from betrayal or loss. It comes from the silence, the kind that stretches out for days, weeks, sometimes even years, when heaven goes quiet, when your heart is aching and your hands are raised, but all you hear is stillness. You pray, but the words feel like they fall flat. You worship, but there's no response. You cry out, but there's no answer. That's the test that breaks most people, not because of what's happening, but because of what's not. The silence of God is one of the hardest places a chosen person will ever walk through. It makes you question everything, not just your faith, but your worth. You start to wonder, did I do something wrong? Did He leave me? Am I no longer His? That's the lie the silence tries to sell you, that distance means abandonment. But in God's kingdom, silence isn't a rejection, it's a refinement. When God is silent, He's not absent. He's observing, watching what you do when you don't feel Him, when the goosebumps are gone, when the miracles aren't showing up, when the breakthrough you were promised still hasn't come. That's when your real faith shows up. Not the faith that shouts in a crowd, but the faith that whispers, I still trust you in the dark. God uses silence to teach you how to hear differently. When everything is loud, it's easy to get caught up in the noise, the voices of people, the distractions of the world, the emotions of your own heart. But in the silence, all of that gets stripped away, and you're left with the choice. Will you trust His character even when you can't trace His hand? The silence trains your spiritual ears. It forces you to dig deeper, to go beyond the surface level relationship, to stop chasing feelings and start chasing truth. It's in that silence that you learn to walk not by what you feel, but by what you know. And what you know is this: God is still God, even when He's quiet. His promises are still true, even when they're delayed. His love is still constant, even when it doesn't feel close. And here's the mystery: the silence often comes before the shift, before the next level, before the doors open, before the healing. It's like a holy pause, a sacred stillness before the storm breaks or the blessing flows. Not to punish you, but to prepare you, because when you finally hear Him again, it will be clearer than ever before, sharper, more personal, more powerful. But you can't rush the silence. You can't manipulate your way out of it. You can't worship harder to force Him to speak. You simply wait. You show up. You remain faithful. You let your roots grow down deep in the quiet earth. So when the winds come, you don't break. You hold on. And even when the silence hurts, you stay. That's what makes the chosen ones different. They don't just praise in the spotlight. They trust in the silence. They don't need to hear God to follow Him because they've learned He speaks loudest when we're still. And when the silence finally lifts, they emerge stronger, calmer, sharper. Not because they got all the answers, but because they learned how to walk without them. The test of betrayal. Betrayal is a wound that doesn't bleed on the outside. It cuts straight through the soul. It's not pain from an enemy. It's pain from someone you trusted, someone you let in, someone you never expected to turn on you. It comes quietly, without warning, like a knife you never saw coming. And the worst part, it's not always loud or obvious. Sometimes betrayal shows up as distance, as silence, as someone who once stood beside you, suddenly walking away without a word. The hardest part of betrayal isn't just losing the person. It's the weight of what their presence meant to you. It's realizing that loyalty you gave wasn't returned, that love you showed wasn't protected, that moments you thought were sacred didn't mean the same on the other side. And when you're chosen, betrayal hits differently because it rarely comes from strangers. It often comes from those who were closest to your heart. But here's the truth: God teaches in this brutal test. Betrayal is not your enemy, it's your mirror. It shows you who's really for you and who was only clapping because you were winning. God uses betrayal to separate the crowd from the called. He lets certain people walk away not to hurt you, but to heal you. Because not everyone you start with is meant to finish with you. And sometimes the people you think you can't live without are the exact ones holding you back. It doesn't mean they're evil. It means their season in your story has ended. And God, in His mercy, allows betrayal to do the cutting you couldn't bring yourself to do. You prayed for elevation, for clarity, for growth. And sometimes that answer comes in the form of someone walking out of your life. Don't chase them. Don't beg them. Don't lose yourself trying to make someone stay who's already chosen to leave. Because when God removes, He replaces. When He allows the knife, He also heals the wound, but He lets it cut deep enough that you stop leaning on people more than you lean on Him. Betrayal forces you to look at your foundation. What are you building on? Approval, on affirmation, on the comfort of being surrounded by familiar faces? Because if so, then God's not punishing you. He's protecting the future version of you, the one that can't afford to be attached to dead weight, the one that needs people who can walk with you, not just clap from the sidelines when it's easy. And yes, it hurts deeply, but it also reveals, it shows you that the path of the chosen is often a lonely one, not because you're unlovable, but because you're being set apart. The more God calls you higher, the fewer people can go with you. That's not rejection, that's refinement. Even Jesus wasn't spared from betrayal. Judas walked with Him, talked with Him, shared meals, and still sold Him out with a kiss. But what Judas didn't know is that his betrayal was part of the plan. It pushed Jesus toward His purpose. And in the same way, what others meant for harm in your life, God will use for your good. So let the knife fall, let the masks come off, let the truth be revealed, not to harden you, but to free you. You are not who walked away, you are who survived it. And that kind of strength, that kind of clarity, that's the gift only betrayal can give. The test of waiting. Waiting is one of the most overlooked tests, yet one of the most powerful. It doesn't look like a battle, but it feels like a war. Because waiting has a way of testing not your strength, but your surrender. It's when time becomes your teacher, when every passing day whispers doubt, when it feels like everyone else is moving forward, and you're stuck in place, wondering if God forgot about you. You see others rise. You watch them step into blessings you prayed for. You see them post victories while you sat barely holding your hope together. And even though you try to celebrate them, there steps a quiet ache in your chest that asks, God, what about me? But here's what you don't see. Their speed isn't your standard. Their timeline isn't your truth. Because when you're chosen, God takes His time with you, not to delay you, but to develop you. What He's building in you isn't fragile. It's not surface level. It's deep. It's solid. It's something that's going to last. And for that, the process has to be slower, more intentional, more refined. Delays aren't denial. They're often divine protection. God sees things you don't. He sees hearts that aren't ready, opportunities that would have crushed you, relationships that look good but would have derailed your calling. So when He says wait, it's not to hurt you, it's to shield you. You think you're being held back. But what if you're actually being held together? Waiting is where the chosen are stretched. It's where faith is forged. It's in the stillness that God teaches you how to trust without seeing, how to walk without proof, how to believe even when the promise feels far. And if you can learn to praise Him while you wait, you'll be unstoppable when the answer comes. This what God gives after the waiting. It hits different. It's not rushed. It's not broken. It's not something you had to force or manipulate. It comes with peace. It comes with purpose. And when it arrives, you'll understand why it took so long. You'll look back and realize it wasn't just about getting the blessing, it was about becoming the person who could carry it. There's something sacred about the waiting room. It's where God strips away the noise. It's where you learn to depend on Him alone. It's where the deep work happens, the kind no one sees, but everyone eventually feels. When you finally step into what He promised, you won't be the same person who first asked for it. You'll be wiser, stronger, more focused, and more grateful. Don't despise the waiting. Don't rush it. Don't compare your timeline to someone else's highlight reel. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it never will. God's delays are often His way of aligning your life with His perfect will. And when He says, now nothing and no one will be able to stop it. So if you're in the waiting, stay steady, keep showing up, keep trusting, keep preparing, because what feels like a pause is actually preparation. And when the time is right, His time, everything will shift suddenly, swiftly, powerfully, and you'll realize it was worth every second. The test of losing everything. There comes a moment in every chosen one's journey where everything falls apart. Not just a few things, everything. Finances collapse, relationships break beyond repair, your plans fall flat, and what you once called secure disappears right in front of you. It's not a slow fade. It's a brutal surrender where you're left staring at the ashes of a life you tried so hard to hold together. And in that silence, the question screams in your spirit, God, why are you letting this happen? The loss feels personal. It feels like punishment. It feels like you're being ripped apart piece by piece. And the worst part is that you don't even know how to pray anymore. You feel exposed, empty, even angry. You tried to do everything right. You were faithful. You gave your all. So why this? Why now? But this isn't punishment. This is pruning. And there's a big difference. Punishment is for those running from God. Pruning is for those being prepared by God. When you're chosen, there are things in your life, habits, comforts, people, idols, that you didn't even realize were speaking louder than His voice. And in His love, not His wrath, He starts to strip them away. Not to break you, but to bring you back to the foundation. To remind you that your identity was never meant to rest in your income, your relationships, or your titles. It was always meant to rest in Him. God will allow you to lose everything that was false, everything that was temporary, so you can finally stand on what's real. Because when everything is gone and you still choose to worship, to trust, to show up, that's when heaven takes notice. That's when something eternal starts to grow. It's hard to explain this kind of loss to someone who hasn't walked through it. They'll see the surface, but they won't understand the stripping. They won't understand what it feels like to look in the mirror and not recognize the person staring back, to feel like a failure while knowing deep down that something divine is happening, even if you can't see it yet. God removes what we would never let go of ourselves. He closes doors we would have begged to keep open. He exposes cracks we tried to ignore, because what He's building in you requires a foundation that won't collapse when life gets heavy again. And it will get heavy again. But next time you'll be ready. You'll stop finding your worth in applause. You'll stop leaning on the people who were never meant to hold your heart. You'll stop chasing things that temporarily numb the ache but never heal it. Instead, you'll hear His voice clearer. You'll walk lighter. You'll stand stronger, not because life got easier, but because you got anchored. Losing everything isn't the end, it's the reset. It's the sacred dismantling of a life built around control and the start of a life built around trust. And when the rebuilding begins, and it will, you'll realize that you didn't really lose anything that was meant to stay. You only lost what couldn't go with you into the next season. So don't resist the stripping. Don't fight the fall. Let it break you open. Let it draw you closer. Because sometimes The greatest gift God gives is letting everything collapse so you can finally discover who you really are in Him. The test of still standing, after all the silence that made you question your worth, after the betrayal that cut you deeper than words could explain, after the waiting that stretched your faith to its limits, and after the loss that left you empty, confused, and barely breathing, you're still here. That alone is a miracle. That alone is proof, not of your perfection, but of your persistence. Because when everything around you said give up, something inside you whispered keep going. You may not have come through with grace. You may have crawled. You may have doubted. You may have cried until your chest hurt, but you didn't quit. You kept showing up. And that is the kind of strength that can't be faked. That's the kind of faith that heaven honors. You see, being chosen was never about being flawless. It was about being faithful. And faith isn't loud. It's not always bold or poetic. Sometimes faith is silent. It's getting out of bed when you don't want to. It's praying when you feel like your prayers hit the ceiling. It's forgiving when the pain is still raw. It's trusting that God is still writing your story, even when the chapter you're in feels unbearable. Still standing doesn't mean you weren't broken. It means the breaking didn't finish you. It means that everything the enemy threw at you to destroy you failed. The depression didn't drown you. The heartbreak didn't kill your purpose. The delay didn't disqualify you. And the silence didn't shut down your praise. You're still standing because God never let go. Even when you felt like you were falling, His hand was underneath it all. Sometimes we think survival isn't enough. We think if we're not thriving, not winning, not shouting from the mountaintop, we're somehow behind. But the truth is, some seasons are about just making it through. And if you're still here, you passed the test. Not because you had all the answers, but because you didn't stop seeking them. Not because you always felt strong, but because you kept moving even when you felt weak. The fire didn't destroy you. It refined you. It burned away the pride, the false security, the shallow faith. And what's left is something deeper, something purer, something unshakable. You didn't survive for nothing. You were shaped for a reason. Every scar has a story. Every delay built endurance. Every loss cleared the path. And every betrayal pushed you closer to your real purpose. Now, you walk different. You see different. You love with more wisdom. You speak with more clarity. You no longer need crowds to feel validated. You no longer need things to feel secure. You've learned that your strength doesn't come from what you hold, it comes from what you've overcome. Still standing means you've walked through hell and refused to make it home. It means you've buried some dreams, said goodbye to some people, let go of old versions of yourself, and still chose hope. You chose life. You chose God again and again. So don't let the enemy shame your survival. Don't let the world tell you that just standing isn't enough. It's more than enough. It's divine evidence that you're built different, that you're chosen and chosen ones. They might bend, they might stumble, they might even fall, but they always rise because the fire was never meant to consume you. It was meant to reveal who you really are. And now you know. Which of these spiritual tests have you walked through or are still walking through? Is it the silence where heaven felt quiet and your soul felt forgotten? Is it betrayal, where the people you loved most became strangers overnight? Is it the waiting, that slow, aching delay that makes you question if the promise will ever come? Or maybe it's the loss, the kind that strips everything and leaves you staring at the rubble, wondering how you'll rebuild. Whatever it is, say it out loud in the comments. You don't have to carry it alone. Your story might be the very thing that helps someone else breathe again. There is healing in honesty. There is power in naming what hurt you. And if you're tired of pretending everything is fine, if you're done sugarcoating this walk with God, trying to make it look easier than it is, then this space is for you. If you want the raw truth, the real fire, and a faith that isn't built on comfort but on character, then hit that subscribe button. Because this is not a place for the perfect, it's for the fighters. The ones who stayed when it would have been easier to walk away. The ones who know what it means to be crushed, but still chose to believe. If that's you, you're home, you're seen, and you are not alone. So speak, share, subscribe. We don't just grow through victory, we grow through vulnerability. And in this space, we honor the pain that shaped you and the God who's still writing your story. Keep standing, keep trusting. You're not just surviving, you're becoming.